Good morning, everyone. We will now call to order the issues and updates for Clackamas County Board of Commissioners on March 14, 2023. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Smith. Would you please convene as the Housing Authority of Clackamas County?
I will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as a Housing Authority for Clackamas County.
Joining you on the line is Housing Commissioner Ann Leenstra. Good morning, Ann.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here. These are requests for consent agenda for the Housing Authority. Item 1, approval to apply for a capital magnet funds from Community Development Financial Institution for Phase 1 of the Hillside Park redevelopment project. The anticipated value is up to $12 million. Funding is through the U.S. Department of the Treasury. No county general funds are involved. Adam Brown and Devin Ellen from the Housing Authority and Health, Housing, Human Services. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. Adam Brown here, Deputy Director, Health, Housing, and Human Services. The next four agenda items are all in Devin's wheelhouse as our housing developer, so I'm going to defer to her.
Hi, yes, good morning. I'm Devin Ellen. I'm the Housing Development Manager with the Housing Authority. So each of the next four items are funding applications that the Housing Authority, in partnership with the developer, Related Northwest, are going after, just in this climate of uncertainty with rising interest rates and fluctuating construction costs. We're trying to secure every source of gap financing that we can. So this is one example. Basically, for this $12 million request, we've heard that, go big with your ask and you'll get a small portion of that. So that's what we're doing here. If there's any specific questions about this one, I'm happy to answer.
Questions, Commissioner Shaw?
Devin, this is for the refurbishment or replacement of the Hillside Park units, 100 units?
We are demolishing 100 units and
yeah.
replacing them with 500.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
Could you remind me how many phases there are of the Hillside project?
2 phases.
2 phases. The second phase is how many homes?
225.
200, so it's 3,
275 for the first, yeah.
okay, so 700, altogether 775 new homes.
Well, there'll be 400 new homes and then 100 replacement homes.
Okay. Right, awesome.
Any other questions? Seeing no objections, thank you very much.
Item 2, approval to apply for a local innovation and fast track grant for Phase 1 of the Hillside Park redevelopment project. Anticipated grant is $6,653,696, funded through the Oregon Department of Housing and Community Services. No county general funds are involved.
So this is kind of the same thing. Happy to answer any questions about this particular source.
Any questions or comments? Commissioner Savas, is your light on?
Oh.
That's okay, I'll turn it off, thank you. Yeah, do you have a question? Okay, I see no objections, thank you.
Item 3, approval to apply for a Nature and Neighborhoods Capital Grant from Metro for Phase 1 of the Hillside Park redevelopment project. Grant value is $1 million. Funding is from Metro Regional Government. No county general funds are involved.
Same, yeah.
Questions or comments? Seeing none?
Item 4, approval to apply for permanent supportive housing capital funding for Phase 1 of the Hillside Park redevelopment project. Grant request is $1.2 million. Funding through the Oregon Department of Housing and Community Services. No county general funds are involved.
Any questions?
Questions or comments?
Yeah, this is the last one. So when are we going to see the first units come online?
We're hoping to break ground in the first half of 2024.
Okay, start digging.
And then it'll be a 2-year construction period.
Okay,
Yep,
thank
seeing
you.
no objections, thank you.
Item 5, approval of a resolution 1975 acknowledging the financial statement findings and plan of corrective action in accordance with ORS 297.466 for fiscal year 2022. Audit, no fiscal impact, no county general funds are involved. Tony Carter is joining. Go ahead.
Thank you, Gary. And yes, this relates to the fiscal year 2022 financial audit that we do. We do an annual audit every year, and Tony's going to speak to the specifics.
Hello, Board. The Housing Authority was presented its audit by Moss Adams on February 24th. The audit found that the prepared financial statements did require significant edits before the auditors could issue an opinion, and therefore there was a finding in our audit. The heart of the issue of our finding was that it took the Housing Authority longer to prepare our financial statements accurately, and this caused us to miss reporting deadlines to HUD and the state and required us to ask for extensions that were granted by the state. The Housing Authority wishes to emphasize that there were no material misstatements identified, just minor errors that had to be fixed and redundantly sent to the auditors. This deficiency was anticipated by the Housing Authority because of a significant turnover we had this year in our staffing. Our executive director resigned in November 21, our deputy director of finance resigned in January of 22, and all but one accounting staff retired or resigned before the audit. The Housing Authority was faced with an unusually bad employment market, and we're backfilling all these positions has taken more time than anticipated. The Housing Authority also wishes the board to recognize that having the finding during a year that found the Housing Authority also trying to reorganize our structure within the county while doing a major software conversion and still completing all major strategic policy and development goals during a record-setting growth of our budget and number of families served is not unexpected. In fact, the Housing Authority is proud that it had no material misstatements, and the findings were, as they were, that we needed to hire staffing adequate to meet our audit deadlines next year. The Housing Authority wants the board to know we have taken immediate steps and have completed an action plan to resolve the findings and move ahead next year without repeating this finding. We hired an accounting supervisor, Karen Marcos, who, under my direction, did an amazing job completing the audit this year with our limited experience and knowledge of federal accounting. On January of this year, we finally hired a new finance manager, Darren Chilton, who will be leading the Housing Authority Community Development Division and the accounting and contracting and financing team. We started and we filled all of our other vacant accounting positions. We started a financial reporting calendar for all the accounting teams so that all deadlines are known and met throughout the year. We have proposed and started in-depth accounting trainings for all the new staff to ensure they understand the generally accepted accounting principles for all of our new funding sources. We are reviewing all policies and procedures to allow for improved accountability. That concludes my explanation.
Questions or comments for the presenters on this? Commissioner Savas?
Yes, Chair. I just want to clarify, this is agenda item 5, right?
Correct.
Okay. So when I click on the packet, it's coming up with something different. Grant request for 1.2 million. So if I'm not, and I did it 3 times, so it's not what you just stated, is not anywhere in the contents. That just could be, you know.
So the link doesn't work is
The
what you're
link, the
saying?
link doesn't work, but prior to me confirming that, the first thought that came to mind, any kind of audit report with findings, I won't say they're significant, but they're out of the norm, right? Nothing to be proud of. That I think we have a right to be briefed, or actually responsibility to be briefed on it, and to be well-versed before it comes to us. And frankly, sometimes I'm accustomed to, prior to becoming a commissioner, that the auditor themselves present it before the board as well. So there's a two-way dialogue with the auditor, explaining all these things to make sure it's presented from the auditor's perspective as well. I have not, unless it was given to me, and I apologize to staff if it has, and I missed it, but I never saw this, and I don't even know, again, it's not in here, so do we have to act today? I'm not comfortable with doing anything until I actually see the material.
So we're briefing you now, Commissioners. The audit is not complete for Clackamas County. When it is, yes, the auditor comes before you and does all of it at once. But Elizabeth, what's the deadline? Or Adam, what's the deadline? Is there a deadline?
I'd have to check with Central Finance
Tony's
about.
nodding her head. Do you know the deadline?
Yes, for our HUD reporting, we have a December 31 deadline, but because we submitted it to the state already, we have to have this finalized and by the board and signed by the end of this month.
Okay.
The state gives you a 30-day after you submit
So
deadline.
the last Tuesday of March is when?
The last Tuesday of March would be March 28th.
I'm hearing 2 different dates.
What action are you asking from the board today, Gary?
Today, this is on your consent agenda for Thursday for you to approve that you've been briefed today on what the finding was and that we're filing with the state. It was not malicious, it was not evil, it was not purposeful, it was an accident. But we have to report it to the state.
I'm going to say that we have not been fully briefed on this since the link doesn't work, and you can come back at another time and present it. Elizabeth? Will that work? Well, that's the problem with bringing things up to deadlines, staff.
Yeah, it's a function of when the audit was completed. We have 30 days after the audit's completed, as I said. So I can commit to making myself available over the next 2 days before the business meeting on Thursday to answer any questions. And I also just want to mention that what the substance of the finding is here. So as Tony said, there's no material misstatements or anything like that. What happened was the initial draft of the audit that staff presented to the auditors required a larger number of iterations and corrections between the parties than you normally would expect. So that's a reflection of new staff and them preparing a financial statement like this for the first time. They needed some coaching and support to present that material in a way that met the auditor's needs. And the auditors said, you know, when that happens, we're compelled to make this finding, right? That there's an expectation that the quality of the work product meets a certain standard. In this case, it didn't meet that standard. So as an organizational leader, when this came up, I was disappointed because I want the learning curve for our staff to be shorter, but I wasn't necessarily surprised because there is that learning curve. And so to me, this is more of a reflection of our responsibility to provide people the coaching and training and support and leadership that they need so that we're not in this situation. So that's how we found ourselves here.
I understand the explanation, but I think that, again, anything that rises to the level of the auditor to do this is something that should be brought to the board.
Yeah.
And promptly, not like this, not in consent agenda. That's my personal opinion on this and my experience is that there's always been a formality, a far more involved formality of the board when there's anything, has anything to do with the auditor and bringing something that requires our approval or not. Even if the annual report should be something that we are apprised of and presented with, and we haven't done that historically in Clackamas County. That's all I have, Chair.
So this is different than from what Gary, the internal auditor, the county internal auditor does, correct?
It is separate, yes.
Okay, so we're going to hold on this, and Adam, I suggest you have a briefing with Commissioner Savas, and if it appears next week because of the deadline, then so be it. And on further issues with audits of importance, the board needs to be briefed on for all departments.
Chair Smith, I have one comment.
Just don't assume because it's on consent agenda, folks, that it's a slam dunk for the commission. Okay? Thank you very much. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, I just wanted to say, success is not a matter of not making mistakes. Success is a matter of taking timely corrective action. Even in light of challenges, you've done that. I'm confident that your corrective actions are adequate. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that, thank you.
Yes, of course. So we've always had that opinion. Very nice, Commissioner Scholl.
Heard you loud and clear, Commissioners, on future audit findings. In this case, this item number 5 is pulled for this week. It will come back next week for your approval at a meeting then. All right, Chair, will you please, thank you, Commissioner Leenstra, for being here today. Chair, you now convene as the Extension and 4-H Service District.
I will recess as a housing authority and convene as a 4-H and Extension Service District.
This is a advisory board and commission request for the 4-H, for the Extension and 4-H Service District. Tony, go ahead.
Clackamas County Extension and 4-H Service District, staffed by OSU Extension Clackamas, currently has 2 openings on the commission due to term expirations. Through a recruitment process, 2 applications were received. Both are recommended for appointment. 1 applicant is new, another applicant is returning for a second term. Both members have previously been members of the board. The recommendation is Rob Kappa and Rob Guttridge.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Seconded.
Commissioner Savas has moved that we appoint to the Clackamas County Extension 4-H Service District Rob Kappa and Rob Guttridge. And Commissioner Scholl, second the motion. Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Chair, you now convene as the Board of County Commissioners.
I will recess as the 4-H Extension Service and 4-H, and convene as a Board of County Commissioners.
All the remaining items are under the Board of County Commissioners. First, legislative update. Trent Wilson will present today. Chris Lyons is in Salem. Trent, go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners, Administrator Schmidt. I have two issues for you this morning. One is federal, one is state. I'll start with the federal one. This is the memo that starts with TriMet earmark support request. TriMet is requesting support by the Board of County Commissioners for a project that they will submit for congressionally directed spending. This is not in addition to what you've already approved for the county's earmark process. Those are the 4 projects, and we're working on those. This is more like what Westland and Estacada requested, which was a support letter for their project. So TriMet is doing their own request for their own project and seeking a support letter from the Board of County Commissioners. Their project would buy 2 electric buses for Line 33, which goes from the town center through Milwaukee, through Oregon City, and ends at the community college here in Oregon City. So it goes through unincorporated Clackamas as well. So it would buy 2 electric buses for that and do signal improvements. We worked with the staff. DTD is satisfied with what's proposed. Feels like they would be adequately reimbursed for any partnership, as well as the other cities who would be part of this work as well.
I have a couple questions on this. I'm not hot on electric buses at all. They're hugely subsidized. Transit is already hugely subsidized, and then we're adding another layer on this. So tell me something, Trent. Is TriMet exempt from paying fuel taxes on their regular diesel buses?
I don't know, but I can look it up.
So I assume they are paying fuel taxes. Once we go electric, they will be paying no fuel taxes to support the roads that they're driving on. I know there's a letter from me. I don't like electric buses. I don't support this. Commissioners, if you want to override me, go ahead.
Chair, I do have some heartburn over this. However, in light of the governor's declaration to, was it the governor or the state legislature enacted the 2030, by 2035, all vehicles sold will be electric. So therefore, I am actually very curious actually to follow, I mean, let's say this happens and we are awarded that and they actually extend line 30, well, not extend, but employ these 2 electric buses on line 33, and it does go up the hill to where we are and to the college and back down. I would really love to frankly, to see how well that works in our kind of terrain, the topography. So I think there's a learning opportunity here that I would like, I would, you know, knowing that these are federal dollars, knowing that they're probably going to be literally, the money is colored, so to speak, for this particular project, or this particular type of thing, that we go forward with and not scrutinize, but to follow this very, very closely to make sure how these buses are performing, because I'm more concerned about the large fleet electric than I am light-duty cars and pickup trucks.
You make some very good points, Commissioner Savas. This initiative can proceed without a letter of support from the Clackamas County Commission. Just letting you folks know. Now, the whole lit up, who wants to talk first? Commissioner Scholl, go ahead.
Thank you. This, your document says total request of $4 million with a $400,000 match from Metro. Part goes to purchase of 2 electric buses and the other to signal improvements on line 33. Do we know what the breakdown is? Cost for signal improvements and what these buses actually cost? Because that's a whole lot of money. And if the lion's share of that's going to 2 buses, it's, you know, the move to EV vehicles, some people could argue that that's a good thing, but we also need to keep an eye on the expense of some of these vehicles, because we've seen some prices that are through the roof.
I am thinking back to my email, which is not in front of me. I believe the cost for and it's a big bus, as Commissioner Savas said, these electric buses are about $1 million a pop. So about half of this request is going to go to the buses, and the other half is going to go to the signalization.
Just
Okay.
some other questions. Go ahead.
No, I'm done, thanks.
Commissioner West and then Commissioner Schrader.
This letter gave me a little heartburn. So I called Lori's chief of staff, Jehun, and had a conversation about like what their thoughts were. They were fully aware of it. Am I correct that we get, I'm trying to find where I thought I saw it, and totally correct me if I'm wrong. No, that doesn't make sense here. That's not the case. Here's a couple things about the electric vehicles. Principally, I have a problem with the government potentially funding electric buses because I don't think that they're environmentally friendly the way we strip mine for those batteries and then we don't know what to do with the batteries. Our grid, we can keep kicking the can down the road here, but our grid is not prepared to go fully electric. I think that goal by 2035 is fraught with issues. I don't necessarily want to contribute to it. I do think that, from my understanding, that Congresswoman Chavez DeRemer may be supportive of this letter, and for some other reasons. It's weird. I feel like I'm in this principled place around going everything electric. Well, we're over here saying, they're trying to also like this.
But to your point, DeRemer can support this without our letter.
Without our letter, that's true.
That's true. And the other question is, what about charging stations? What about the stress on the electric grid, which is already totally stressed out right now? And let's say we eliminate the state, eliminates natural gas.
Yep, that's
More
my next
stress on our electric grid. So it comes a time, you know what, when we need to be pragmatic and start looking at our natural resource supply and where it's coming from. And that's why I'm a no on this.
And
for many
we
reasons.
just talked about how this board's going to be supportive of multiple opportunities and choices around energy sources and supportive of even the possibility for natural gas. I mean, this is beyond this letter, but principally, like where we've been going. There's one thing in the thing that did kind of catch my eye that came from the staff is that it said that it met our goal for 2050 climate action, something for the county. I know that you guys usually like put something under the strategic plan, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but I don't know if this type of movement for electric vehicles fits our actual board's strategic plan around becoming more climate
I don't think
friendly.
it does, Commissioner West.
But it was sent to us as that's why it was justified.
Well, I know so, look, there's justification for everything that if somebody wants it bad enough. Okay, I don't know, Gary, answer this question. Are we on task to complete our climate action plan without electric buses from TriMet?
I think you can, yes.
Dan is in the back. I don't know if he even wants to answer it. You don't have to, but I think we are making progress somewhat on that. And I would submit that there are other issues that are more burning in Clackamas County for the climate action plan, and it's not electric buses. But you know what, Commissioners? That's just where I'm coming from. There comes a time you say enough already. Okay, Commissioner, are you done?
I'm done. Go ahead. Yeah.
Commissioner Schrader.
Well, I'm okay with the letter, so I will be the dissenting voice. And the reason is that, look, this is the wave of the future, ladies and gentlemen, and frankly, when I go visit one of our major distributors, Cisco, and they're telling me, and Tootie, you were there too, by the way, but what year, I can't recall what year they said, they, as a major for-profit traded sector industry, are going to electric vehicles. And so if the private sector is doing it, I think it's great for the public sector to do it. And I do agree, however, with the comments about natural gas. I think that's misguided at this time, truly, because it's clean energy. And I do think that folks at the state legislature and the federal legislature should be really looking at the grid and expanding our capacity in order to meet the needs for electric vehicles. For me, that's the first things first kind of thing. And I would like to see more policies moving forward in that direction because we have issues, quite frankly, with the national security of our electric grid. It's a huge problem, not just here, but across the nation. Not only getting enough electricity, but making sure the generating areas are safe, not open to domestic terrorism or international terrorism, and that's a whole other piece that needs to be addressed with this. So I'm waxing eloquent. I'm okay with electric buses, but if the will of this board is to not sign the letter, I was going to ask, do you mind if I sign a letter?
Yes, I do.
Okay, just thought I'd ask.
Thank you for asking. Commissioners, what is the, Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, just quickly, I mean, what I like about the letter, it does say pilot, and if this helps, great. If not, then I'm okay with not sending a letter. But if we were to add a sentence or a couple sentences that speak to Clackamas County is highly interested in looking at the pragmatic aspects of electric buses in our terrain and topography, so we welcome this pilot project for the sake of analyzing the outcomes. If we added some language like that, I'm okay with it, and I would support it, but I don't know how we get on a vote. So I'll make a motion to, if I could.
We also need to add language, in my opinion, about charging stations and supportive of the grid and creating more electricity in the state. I don't know, are they going to put solar panels on this bus? I don't know.
That won't work.
I know it won't work.
It'll help with electricity numbers.
Yeah. So, Trent, do you know if charging stations are included with the package, or what was their plan to charge these?
TriMet has several bus barns where they keep their fleet. One of them is on Powell Boulevard and I-205. I think it's where most of the buses on this side of town sleep at night, if you will. And they have plenty of electric fleet already that's being incorporated into their larger system. So they have charging capability there, I believe.
Okay, well, that's quite a ways, actually, if you think about the terrain going up to the college, from down on 99E all the way up to the college, up on red soils, and all the way back down. So I don't know how many trips that can take, but that's why I want to look at it. I want to look at the practicality, because I just want to note, and Trent just said it, I just want to emphasize that TriMet does not have a garage in Clackamas County.
No, they don't.
They have them in Washington County, and they got them in Multnomah County, but if they're really serious about bus transit in Clackamas County, they'd have a garage in Clackamas County, and they don't.
Think they'd let us know they're going to have charging stations at the college, because that's the end of it. I don't know how long these batteries.
Yeah, I don't know what the range is.
Yeah. Paul, did you were in the queue on something else?
Yeah. Well, I just queue up maybe, I make a motion, I'll just try this. I'll make a motion to have staff add a couple sentences in regard to Clackamas County's highly interested in the pilot project for aspects of whether or not it's pragmatic, considering our terrain in Clackamas County. And also, Chair, your point was about the charging stations and
energy source.
Grid,
energy source.
Yeah, what's the legislature doing to create more electricity in the state?
No.
Besides wind and solar and all these, it's the grid. It's the infrastructure. It's the poles we see along the streets, because our county keeps growing. The capacity of, just like the capacity of our roads, what's the capacity of the electric grid? That type of stuff.
Yeah, so I'll restate the motion for clarity. Chair, I move that we approve the letter with additions of sentences related to Clackamas County's interest in a pilot program, considering our terrain, and also our concerns about the charging stations and the practicality of the energy sources for the electricity itself.
I'll second that.
We have two commissioners in the queue. Commissioner Scholl,
No, I
Commissioner West.
Yeah, and thanks for the opportunity to discuss this further.
No worries.
Do we know at all if TriMet is having some issues with an aging fleet, and this is how they are basically mandated to upgrade their fleet, is to go electric? I think that's, just a practical question about, we have some older buses, and as we transition away from those aging out buses, this is what's available to us, and we need help to buy them and subsidize them. Do we know if is any of that behind this?
I don't know about TriMet's fleet or the age of it or their sort of plan for doing that. What I do know is, just like with Clackamas County, the congressionally directed spending process earmarks, these are financial opportunities to go and pursue funding for these types of upgrades, and there's a specific bucket for transit that they're pursuing. And we're doing something similar for transit in other spots too. So I think they're just taking advantage of the opportunity to be able to do this, and they're trying to do it for Clackamas County.
And I want to speak to the grid issue. A major concern of these mandates and these time dates in the future is the issues with the infrastructure of the grid, the ability to handle the new capacity of everyone's Tesla or Volt or EV vehicle, along with powering our homes. And, you know, we are a little bit blessed in Oregon because we have hydropower, but even that somewhat is not liked by certain special interest groups with a lot of power. So I do think it's important that if we go forward this, that is really clearly stated in the letter. So with those amendments, I'll end up supporting the letter from Commissioner Savas.
Okay, there's been a motion made by Commissioner Savas to make amendments to the letter as he stated. I'm not going to state everything. It's been seconded by Commissioner Schrader. Gary Schmidt, do you have a comment?
Yes, the letter's due by the end of today, so we don't have time to come back to you. This is a boilerplate support letter for a request for an appropriation. If you don't like it, just don't do it. Congressman DeReamer's already going to support it. We don't have time to come back to you on the letter, so whatever you say, you're going to have to trust us if you do. Otherwise, we're out of time. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I maintain to modify the letter because I want to know, I want it on the record that if we do get these buses, they're not pulled into some other area of the region and taken away from us. So I want that intent, and I want it to be Clackamas County fulfilled, so I think it's important to get it on the record.
Gary?
I feel comfortable trusting them to draft it too. I don't know if it needs to come back before us.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem. I don't need to see it again. I think you guys are, you can do that.
You just send us a copy.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Emily Klepper and Gary Schmidt also to help wordsmithing the letter. Okay, any further discussion? That's the problem of having before the board and making the assumption that we're going to do this, just like in the previous one. You know, a lot of these issues that are coming before us, Trent, I really appreciate your work a lot. I know you say it's boilerplate, but electric buses are not boilerplate. They are not the norm. This is a whole new territory for us, and Clackamas County is different. Any other comments? Tony, take the poll.
Commissioner Schull,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Abstain. Motion passes 4-1-0. Up next.
Thank you. My other topic is a state topic. It's Senate Bill 847. It is state legislation here. It's one of the housing bills that's being advanced. It's being advanced by one of the Clackamas County legislators, Senator Jama. It's a complex bill. And so let me just start there. It's a very complex bill. It already has several amendments that are being introduced. It has a public hearing tomorrow. We have mixed feelings about this bill. There are positives for addressing housing issues, which is very clear in your legislative agenda. Thank you. And it also creates some hurdles and some administrative burdens for departments like Transportation and Development, the Planning Office, as well as the Assessor's Office. And so it's one of those bills where we feel like we would like your direction to weigh in to try to curb some of those things that are going to give us heartburn, and also be collaborative on a bill that we think has the legs to make it through the legislative session. So for your discussion today, we have Senate Bill 847.
This is interesting. You say the hearing, is it the first hearing that's tomorrow night?
It's tomorrow morning at 8
Tomorrow
a.m.
morning. Which date is that?
March 15.
March 15th is the last date to pass bills out of the Senate committee, March 17.
March 17 is the day where a bill has to have scheduled a work session.
A scheduled work session. Thank you. Okay. Now, this bill is really interesting. And I see there's a lot of bills out there, I think, to help local jurisdictions deal with the housing crisis we're in. However, I think it needs to be stressed that about the unintended possible mandates on our county planning staff, that's something this will bring. And just point out, is it possible, commissioners, that we could submit a letter to Senator Jama, because it's his bill, saying, hey, had you considered the impact to our local county government if this is implemented. And it doesn't really, it's complex, makes decisions. Certain decisions are already allowable, notes administrative burden to deliver many of the provisions in this bill. It does restricts local government ability to regulate condominiums. So is this for cities and counties?
Yes.
Okay, so if we could just have Senator Jama aware that if the bill can be more permissive and not shall, but have permissive language in it to go forward. Commissioners, do you have any other ideas on this? Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, now, as I understand this Senate Bill 847, it's to freeze property taxes for 5 years on properties of landowners that choose to build an ADU on their property. And so the idea here is to stimulate construction of additional residential units. And anytime we can do that, I support it. So the question is, what would be the impact on freezing tax assessed value on an unknown number of new ADUs in the county?
Thank you for your question. I reached out to the assessor's office with that very same question. They were only able to go back and look a year to see what the number of ADUs have been added to Clackamas County's assessment. They have not been able to do the full calculation yet, so I don't have that number, but they are doing the work on it. Another thing that the assessor's office said is their current system doesn't really have the ability to track this. They'd have to do it separately or manually is the word that they used. So it's part of the nuance of this. They're trying to do some creative ideas. Some of it's not fully baked into the current system yet. And that's where we want to be a little bit more engaged to offer some amendments that can make the burden lighter, knowing that the goal is, as you said, generally positive to trying to address the housing crisis.
Okay, good, thank you.
Commissioner West?
You know, I hate property taxes. They are expensive and crushing in Oregon. I know why we have them, and that's another debate. So am I understanding this correctly? The majority of people, let's say I have my single family resident, and my mom needs a place to live, so we add an ADU over the garage. And I go ahead and add that ADU. My mom gets to live in there and doesn't have to go I'm just totally hypothetical. She wouldn't have to go into a home, let's say, or somebody's mother. And the family gets to stay together in a family unit. Does that mean just for 5 years, that basic 3% that's kind of baked in the cake, that people's property taxes go up, it just freezes for 5 years at that earlier assessed value, and they just don't see a 3% increase for 5 years? Am I understanding that correctly?
I'm hesitant to commit to a yes or no on that because there are so many amendments on this bill.
It's in full movement?
It's in full movement.
And does that mean that they would still have to pay the increase on their property taxes if a levy was passed? So our police department just came out for a levy, Clackamas Fire is coming out for a levy so would that just not be included in the increase? So they still have to pay the levy, but it's just the assessed value increase? I guess it's more complicated than just freezing property taxes, and I don't understand what that means right now.
So Commissioner, you raise a really good point. This bill does a lot of things, and freezing property taxes for 5 years for ADUs is literally just one of 20 different sections or more. It's a good question. Our planning office has many of similar questions that we're tracking right now. It's part of the work that we can actually add to this. And so I've written your question down to see if we can get a clearer answer on it, and I can get back to you.
Just another heads up. Maine did something, a property tax freeze for seniors a year or two ago. That was quite innovative and great. And I know there has been legislation talking about that property tax freeze for seniors the way Maine did it, which I think is a super innovative, interesting policy to help people not be priced out of their homes because of Oregon's crazy high property taxes or state's property taxes, but allows them to have more housing security. I'm wondering if it's similar to that. And then the other question I have is, I'll just make this statement is I just fundamentally believe that one of the ways to deal with the housing crisis is to help family units stay together. As a nurse, I know the difficult process and the expenses of a family having to put a loved one in the home. Many different cultures, they're very big on family units staying together, grandma, grandpa, multi-generational. And one of the ways we can really tackle that, and we did this in Wilsonville with being very innovative with our ADU policies. So in my in my heart and kind of how I see good policy going forward and innovative, it's about expanding ADUs in a way that I think allows more family units to stay together. But I just have a lot of questions about this bill, commissioners.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with you on that. However, it cannot be so onerous to county government that we're in a mandate situation, taking time and money. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, well, come from a different angle here. On the first bullet about the freezing the property tax, and I have a problem with that. No, because that's our money, right? Is this
Yep.
similar to an unfunded mandate?
Yeah.
In that it's the state telling us what we're going to get or not, in this case, not get, right? We're not going to get property tax. So while I understand all those needs and everything, I think that if anyone in the state legislature was a county commissioner or a city councilor and had to wrestle with their budgets, they would say, oh my gosh, this is going to be an administrative burden. And by the way, we're going to take a haircut on our revenue stream, right? And by the way, if this bill passes, what's the next one? Going to take more property tax? I think it opens up a door that I'm very, very concerned about. The last bullet, this one bothers me, restricts local government ability to regulate condominiums. This is an administrative, they're just setting us up for, this is not written by a friend of local government. Or at least, I'm not targeting the senator himself, but I don't know if they really understand our difficulties in making our budget whole, and especially for us in light of our expense with the courthouse and our payments.
Well, and
So
that's
I
why
can't
I
support it.
think we can support the general idea, or stay neutral, or support the general idea with some caveats, and gee, this could have some unintended consequences of unfunded mandates on county government. What is your recommendation, Gary and Trent?
Our recommendation is that you take a neutral position, which is a pretty strong, we're not going to take a for or against position. So it says that we're engaged and we're active, and to allow us the ability to start working with Senator Jama and the committee to nuance some of this bill, as other local jurisdictions are doing, to try to reduce the burden on local government.
I would like to know what the other jurisdictions are saying on this. I see there's a lot of amendments. Frankly, I have not had time to read those.
A lot.
It's a lot, and it's hard to read legislative bills when there's so many amendments. I know I've been there. So that's why we have this very capable staff, Trent, to do that for us. But you've heard us. You know what the concerns are, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I think that's it. We'll take a neutral position. Is there any opposition to a neutral position?
Well, I would just wonder if we take a neutral position today and maybe not revisit this after maybe AOC and other local governments look at this.
That's fine.
I would be concerned that, if they see what I see or concerned like what share my concerns, I'm concerned that we're not maybe taking a strong enough role to fight it, perhaps, if need be. So
I think, Commissioner Savas, there's a time to fight and there's a time for nuance. I think this bill requires some nuance because he's a senator from Clackamas County. I mean, that's the way the rock rolls, folks. So I think that Chris and Phil Donovan, who are our lobbyists in Salem, can have a conversation with Senator Jama about this. Did you realize? And we're not the only ones saying it. Yes, we can revisit this. If it passes the Senate, we'll have an opportunity when it goes to the House. So this is not our only poke at the bear, so to speak.
I will say this, Commissioner Savas, is I really believe that somehow in Oregon, we have to right the ship on the expensive cost of property taxes and how expensive that is. And so I know that impacts local government the way it's difficult to believe that like a basic little single-family home, somebody could be paying $9,000 a year in property taxes, and they look at their state and like, what the hell am I getting for this money, right? They look at the failing schools, they look at the failing state, they look at the national embarrassment, they look at Portland, they look at, and then, we're impacted local government. That is a fact. But a lot of us, most of us in this room pay a ton of money to property taxes, and we see a lot of failure. And so I'm tired of paying an insane amount of money to property taxes for failure. And so when it comes to trimming property taxes, that's appealing to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I share that, Commissioner West, but just remind ourselves as budget season approaching, that's 99% of our livelihood as far as being able to power the lights above us.
True.
And, you know, the seats we sit in and everything else. I mean, this is our livelihood, is property taxes. Not all property taxes go towards the county, by the way. So
That's right.
they are too high. I don't disagree, and that's a burden on folks. But to take that away for a different purpose that does not give, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll just.
Both are true. I agree with you also. Yeah.
So I'm going to recommend, Commissioners, that we take a neutral position and let our staff do the work they need to, and let's see how it falls out. If it passes in some form and goes to the Senate, you'll come back and notify us. Okay?
Will do.
All right, thank you very much. Up next, Gary.
Thank you.
All right, next is consent agenda requests, starting with Health, Housing, and Human Services. Item 1, approval of a contract with the Mental Health Association of Oregon for adult peer-delivered services, crisis services. Contract value is $425,561.42 for 22 months. Funding is through the Oregon Health Plan. No county general funds are involved. Rod Cook, Director, Health, Housing, and Human Services, go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. If approved, this would provide peer-delivered services to those experiencing mental health crisis and who may also be addicted to drugs or alcohol. In addition to working with the mobile crisis response team, peers would assist clients in navigating service systems and locating resources.
Questions or comments for the presenter? Commissioner West?
I think that this is a great example of what we've talked about in our strategic plan. I think peer support, especially those that have already overcome addiction issues, to provide other people along their journey of recovery is essential. And this is a great use of dollars. And so thank you for bringing this before us.
Thank you. Commissioner Schull?
Yes, Rod, where will these two FTEs work from?
They're going to be with the nonprofit, the Mental Health Association of Oregon.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Seeing any objections? None. Go ahead, Rod.
Item 2, approval of a contract with the Mental Health Association of Oregon for adult peer-delivered services, aid and assist. Contract value is $204,128 for 22 months. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, this is a contract with the same nonprofit, but this is aid and assist, so they help people with a mental health condition who have been ordered into community restoration by a judge. This contract is for peer-delivered services provided to assist clients referred by the AIDS and Assist team with legal, court system navigation, and attorney appointments.
Is peer-directed services something that we're going to be seeing more of, do you think, Rod?
It is something that was developed a couple of years ago. It's people basically with lived experience. So when you get to the navigation part of it, you do the intensive piece, but now it's just time to help them get connected to services and all that. That's for somebody who understands, they live that life, they understand the barriers, and so they're having a great successes in connecting to those individuals.
And you say it's very successful. And
Yes.
we could be using it on, for instance, Project Turnkey.
Yes,
Could be.
I arguably so. I think some of the people that we're talking about contracting with, they are hiring people who had been homeless to help the homeless who are coming through the system. So it is a form of peer service delivery.
Especially in light of our employment situation with counselors and therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists. There's such a shortage of them. Many of them have dropped out of the workforce for various reasons. This may be a real help to us. Any further questions on this? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Item 3, approval of a subrecipient agreement with the City of Molalla for Civic Center ADA improvements. The agreement value is $95,000 for 1 year. Funding is through Federal Community Development Block Grant. No county general funds are involved.
Under this agreement, we will make ADA improvements to the Molalla Civic Center. I'll read off a few of these. They're going to install 3 new sidewalk ramps, widen the sidewalk from the bus stop, install ADA compliant ramp from the parking lot, install ADA door opening devices, and remodel existing restrooms to comply with ADA standards.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Any objections to this moving forward? Nope, go ahead.
Item 4, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Sandy for support of the Mount Hood Express bus service. The agreement value is $297,048. Funding is through the State of Oregon Rail and Public Transit Division and $55,000 of budgeted county general funds.
Yes, the Mount Hood Express provides public transit bus service between the City of Sandy, Government Camp, and Timberline, along with other locations in the Mount Hood area, increasing access to employment and recreation opportunities. With the $55,000 from general fund, those are allocated specifically by the BCC for this agreement, which is needed for the match requirement. So that's what we do with the general fund portion of this.
And the $55,000 is budgeted from general fund?
Correct. It's already budgeted.
Last year, thank you. Any further questions? Seeing no objections.
Item 5, approval of an amendment increasing funding and changing the scope of work of a local subrecipient grant service contract with the Father's Heart Street Ministry to provide services during extreme weather conditions. The amendment value is $164,424. Total contract value is increased to $260,560. Funding is through the State of Oregon Housing and Community Services Department, and $9,464 in budgeted county general funds.
Yes, the Father's Heart Ministry is one of 3 inclement weather shelter providers in Clackamas County, currently under contract with Social Services. Last year, they offered 579 bed nights and served 57 unhoused individuals. This winter, the center has provided 2,389 bed nights for warming center services and has exhausted its available funding. So we're basically trying to give them a little bit more money to deal with any other events we might have. The primary source for funding, the $251,0696, is from the state out of the Code Grant Fund, and only $9,464 is budgeted from county general fund. And we need to do that because the other grant is for people who are unhoused. Your money, the general fund, is for people who have housing but need some assistance that night. So their furnace could go out that night, or they find themselves stuck somewhere. So we have this blended funding so that anybody can walk through those doors and get services when they're having that emergency.
Commissioner West.
I have and you may not, maybe we have to get offline on this, but out of the people that are being housed or temporarily sheltered, not housed, but sheltered in a warming center for Father's House, I know that Molalla has this issue where it becomes almost like pseudo housing for these people. And any time we're in any sort of inclement weather, year after year, they're continuing to use these services and they're not getting any progress beyond that. Right? Into better stability, better housing, and better opportunities and supportive services. How successful are we in our outcomes in getting these people into supportive services to where we don't have to rely on emergency sheltering like this for these individuals?
I would have to get some data for you on that because I'm not sure of the process when the event is over, who we're connecting those individuals to. My assumption, but I'll get you data and the real facts on it, but my assumption would be that they would be in the system at that point. We would enter them into our CHA system, which is that Coordinated Housing Authority, and then they move through the system. So that would be my assumption, but let me get back to you on exactly what's happening with those.
So these are warming and cooling shelters
Yes.
for extreme emergency.
Extreme
When the
emergency.
temperature drops to 32 in the winter. So this is not intended for what you're talking about.
That's how it's used sometimes.
Well,
That's just I want to know.
well, you're kind of like mixing apples with oranges a little bit. I think that bears a total further discussion than what this issue is. And what's the hot temperature in the summer?
I think it's 90.
Yeah,
think it's
I
90
don't know what the
degrees.
heat bubble, when we had the heat dome, I think it was in the 80s.
100?
I think you hit 90, you go into extreme temperature.
I can get that as well.
Well, yeah, whether these shelters are open. Okay. So any objections to this moving
One
forward?
last question. Are these safe use sites, or is this a sober facility to be able to be in the warming shelter?
Safe use sites.
Safe use sites mean you can use or be intoxicated when you're in the
No.
facility, or are these sober sites?
These are sober sites.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any objections to this moving forward? Seeing none, next.
Item 6, approval of a lease agreement with Canby Foursquare Church for providing space for the Women, Infants, and Children program. There is no cost associated with this agreement. No county general funds are involved.
Yeah, this is a no-cost lease agreement. Basically, we need paperwork in place, so if there's any, damages or any of those kind of things, we have an agreement with the owners of the property. So that's really all this is. It's just a logistical piece of agreement between us and the church.
Okay. Any questions, Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, so Clackamas County WIC personnel will work out of this
Sure.
This location, is that right?
Yes, yes, it's in Canby area. It's also known as a site where people pick up groceries, and it's really like the community hub for these type of services. And so WIC has landed there as another service that would be available at that site.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions? Seeing no objections?
Item 7, approval of an amendment increasing funding, revising the language in Exhibit B, and extending the duration of a revenue intergovernmental agreement with Lane County for the OregonFoodHandlers.com consortium of counties. The amendment is $195,000 for 2 years, funded by Lane County. No county general funds are involved.
Yeah, this one's a little interesting. So Public Health Division has partnered with Lane County as the designated agent to allow Clackamas County residents to access online food handler training for Clackamas County residents. Those individuals pay a fee, and so what's happening is Lane County compensates us. We get our portion of that, and so we get 80% of the collected fees come back to us, and that's what this agreement is doing. So our people from Clackamas County use the Lane County software, but they pay a fee and we get 80% back. So that's what this is establishing for us.
Questions or comments? Seeing any objections to this moving forward? Nope.
Item 8, approval of a public improvement agreement with Galk Construction for the Jansen Road Apartments Rehabilitation Project. Total contract value is $296,500, effective upon signature through July 6, 2023. Funded through Federal Community Development Block Grant. No county general funds are involved.
Yeah, basically, this agreement is for building improvements to 2 existing multifamily buildings owned by the Housing Authority. These improvements are essential to protect the residential assets for continued use for low, moderate income families and individual residents of Clackamas.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections?
Item 9, approval of a local subrecipient blueprint grant agreement with Tudos Juntos Ready to Smile to provide community education and access to basic dental supplies. The agreement value is $44,436.97 for 1 year. Funding is through budgeted county general funds.
Yes, rural communities in Clackamas County have limited access to dental care. This grant will increase access and education to families regarding the importance of oral health at a young age. The board puts general fund towards the Blueprint Small Grants Program, and so that's what we're mentioning about the general fund portion of this.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections?
Thank you. Next, Transportation and Development. Item 1, approval of the sale of 4 land parcels to the City of Milwaukee for $8,080.70 based on the Clackamas County Policy for Sale and Transfer of County Surplus Property to governmental agencies per ORS 271.330. No county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development, go ahead.
Thank you so much. In the interest of time, the board's been apprised of these properties. Essentially, when we go through our surplus property sale process, we provide notice to various jurisdictions and entities if there's an interest in retaining some of these foreclosed properties for public good. We had a request from the City of Milwaukee for the 4 properties in question. I want to make sure that for the public's information, all parcels are unbuildable. They're small strips or slivers of land. They're located in the City of Milwaukee. Basically, we have a standardized practice for our cost recovery. That cost recovery is based off basically unpaid taxes, overhead costs, et cetera. But I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, and there was a map available highlighting. I'm looking, I'm scrolling down. There was a map available highlighting these properties that are totally unusable, not buildable, and the City of Milwaukee is going to do something really good with them.
Correct.
Any further objections to going forward on this? Hearing none. Go
Item
ahead.
2, approval of a $185,000 county opportunity grant between Clackamas County Parks and Oregon Parks and Recreation Department for roadway improvements at Fayrer Park.
Right.
Total project value is $370,000. Funding is through state grant funds and 2019 Metro Natural Area Bonds. No county general funds are involved.
The park in question is located approximately 2 miles southeast of the City of Molalla. It's situated adjacent to the Molalla River. Essentially, the grant before you today will look to fund a project to repave the day use area, access roads, parking areas, replace curbing, improve ADA parking, and access amenities to the park and campground.
Will that happen this year?
I believe so. I'll confirm that and get back to you, but I believe it's already been queued up.
Recreation season coming up. Yay. Any further questions? Hearing no objections?
Thank you. All of the consent agenda items you discussed today, except for Housing Authority number 5, will be on this Thursday's business meeting agenda. Thank you. Next, revised board order, project turnkey purchase order and delegation. Stephen Madcore from County Council, or who is the County Council? Nope, I guess Andrew Naylor, who's Assistant County Council, will represent. Go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is a clarification to the previously executed board order that delegated signing authority to the chair and the county administrator to execute documents related to the turnkey purchase. Our title company was confused about the board order, so we are clarifying that it's the chair or the county administrator, not both simultaneously, that can sign all the documents related to the closing of the Quality Inn. There was one additional change, clarification that we added to the version that you had before you, and that is to clarify that the closing documents includes, but is not limited to, title documents, financial instruments, grant agreements, or other documents necessary to fund the purchase of the property. What we're trying to clarify here is that whoever signs this can also sign the turnkey grant documents, which will actually give us the money. Again, this is all captured in the original order. We're clarifying to avoid confusion as to who can sign for what. So the amended order has those changes. It changes and to and/or, and then that additional language I just discussed.
So are you saying whoever signs this order will sign, to be consistent, will sign the following orders? Or does it matter? Because I signed one document already. And now we're saying we needed and/or. We needed or added to it.
Correct.
Okay, so it doesn't matter, Gary or the chair?
Right. Either of you.
Got it?
Not
Okay.
both of you. They were trying to have you both
I know
there to
not
sign.
both, but what you said being consistent. But consistency is, I signed the very first deed document, and now Gary will sign this because I'll be out of town next week.
Correct.
And then the subsequent documents that follow, either one of us can sign.
Correct.
That's my point of clarification. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Seeing no objections, thank you, Andrew. Do we need to take a vote on that? or
Because
what?
of the interest in time, we're asking you to make a motion and approve it today. We'll ratify it at this Thursday's business meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Savas has moved a change in signing documents of and/or addition of the language. Commissioner Schrader has seconded that motion. Further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Next topic, I-205 Toll Project Environmental Assessment Update. Dan Johnson will present, and Jamie Stasny.
Dan, you get the fun one.
Oh, all of them. And the short chair.
Is it short again?
Chair Smith, Commissioners, we are here to do a couple of things. One of which is to ask, and some of these materials are in your packet, one is to ask your authorization to put forward another request to the Oregon Department of Transportation to extend the duration of time with the E8. We talked about this last week. You submitted a letter, that was great. We got a 15-day extension. Staff still doesn't think that's enough. We'd like to follow it up with another letter, and we're looking for your authorization to do that today. That's number one. Secondly, I'm going to hand it over to Jamie Stasny to do two things, one of which is to, with that additional 15 days, we had given you a schedule last time about how we were going to engage the board in these discussions. We've revised that schedule based off the 15-day extension. So she's going to run through that. And then kind of just share some general themes. We don't want to do a deep dive with the board today because we're still reviewing the data, but some themes that we're getting from the EA itself. So with that, Jamie Stasny is here to update you on those items.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners, and Administrator Schmidt. It's good to see you all. So I am here to provide just a quick update since the environmental assessment for the I-205 toll project dropped, which was February 21st. Your amazing county staff team has been working very hard and collaboratively with all of our consultants that we have hired to do the initiation of the review. So kind of running through everything, understanding what it is. It's over 2,000 pages of data, analysis, information. So it's taking some time for us to process that. I want to assure you that we're working also collaboratively with our city partners, with their consultants. We're working really hard to share information and make sure that we have all the smart brains around the table to understand what's being proposed and really understand what the impacts are to our communities, to our businesses, to our residents. So I'll share that many of the concerns that we've raised over the past 2 years that we've talked about with you all, that you've echoed to us, and concerns that you've raised are being confirmed through the CA. So some of those themes that we're seeing, where we are still seeing concerns and seeing new ones, are around the ideas of safety, decreased safety on our systems, concerns about diversion, which we've talked about at length, concerns about the offered mitigations, and also concerns of lack of analysis around the comprehensive and cumulative effects that this tolling project will have on our community, our communities, our residents, our businesses. So that is a very high level of the topics that we're seeing, or the issues that are coming up and being reaffirmed. We're going to go much deeper with you all when we're back in front of you again. But I just wanted to share that with you for today and let you know, as Dan said, we're just getting started. 2,000 pages, lots of work to do, lots of people doing it, and the right people doing it. So I want to assure you of that. So as Dan said, gave you a new schedule. This is showing the additional 15 days that were added. So some key dates on that schedule include the fact that there's a diversion subcommittee meeting. That diversion subcommittee is run by the county staff, but it is members of the communities around us, and Commissioner Savas serves on behalf of Clackamas County, looking specifically at diversion issues as they have come up in the EA. That meeting's tomorrow at noon. They're going to have some recommendations that are going to go forward to C4 to be included in their letter of comment on the EA. That's happening on April 6th. And the reason that's happening April 6th is because they won't have another meeting within this short time, right, that we have to review the information. That could change if we get more time. But we will be back in front of you all April 12th. That's when we're going to come to you with the full analysis and with the draft letter for your consideration, which would be submitted into the record. We also have a backup date of April 19th to come back to you again to be able to finish things if we don't have enough time on the 12th. And then April 21st, as of right now, is the drop dead for submitting comments. That's the end of the public comment period at 4 p.m. So all comments will need to be done and submitted by then. There's also one other date, which is April 4th. That is the public hearing. That public hearing has not been adjusted since they did the extension of the time frame. So it's a little awkward with all the other things that we're trying to accomplish. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Dan.
So again, we're here to seek your authorization to submit the letter. That's the primary purpose. Update you on the schedule, which we've just completed. And then last but not least, I'm assuming one of you might want to provide some testimony at the April 4th hearing. And obviously, staff will be prepared to support the board should they make a decision on who wants to present at that particular hearing. So,
Okay, let's take this one at a time. This is our second ask for an extension, correct?
correct.
Okay, what if we don't get it? What are you going to do then?
Well, we have a schedule built on the ability to deliver.
But you say you need more, you need a lot more time to do a really good job on this. My concern is we're not going to get it. I mean, I'm all for it, don't get me wrong. So at the last paragraph, the letter says, we reiterate our request that you extend the public comment period to 90 days by adding an additional 30 days. Commissioners, I assume we have read the letter. Let's take the letter one at a time. Commissioner Scholl.
Okay, so the additional 30 days would extend the public comment period to 21 May, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and should this be granted, this request, is it possible to get a second public hearing in also in that period of time?
We could make that request.
Because right now, you have one, they have one scheduled for April, correct? Okay.
We can make that request.
Yeah, so, I always think it's so beneficial when we have public hearings after the public has been presented with information, and those hearings are very beneficial, at least to me anyway, in hearing what the constituents really feel about an issue. And the issue of transportation, tolling, oh man, that is a hot one. So, well, thank you for what you can do on that.
Just to clarify, would that be a proposed amendment or small edit to the letter to
I think so.
Okay.
I do, because if we don't get an extension, it's going to have to be between, I'm assuming, April 4th and the drop-dead date of April 21st.
And-
We can get that in, yeah.
And one more comment on that,
Yes.
Chair Smith. I recall when the vehicle registration fee happened and, we had a public outreach period, and when it went into effect, we had a lot of blowback from the residents of Clackamas County. I can envision that if that same, thing happens when tolling starts, it'll be 10,000 times the effect, because it's going to affect that many more people, right? So anything we can do for public outreach, public comment, public hearings, I support it. Thank you.
Just to affirm the fact that staff is spreading the word as far and as wide as we can.
I know.
We are partnering with a lot of our jurisdictions. We are doing website updates. We are, whoever will listen, we are trying to inform them of when, where, and how to participate. So.
Yeah, I know you are. Thank you.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, Chair and colleagues, I just wanted to share that a number of people, citizens, active, interested citizens on this matter have reached out to, myself and probably you as well. Maybe not all, but they kind of know that I'm the transportation person on the board, so I probably fielding more than the rest. But they have expressed concerns about either getting ODOT to explain some of the EA to them and not getting much consideration from ODOT to actually accommodate their request. But interesting, was pointed out to me late yesterday, very late yesterday, that the EA contains really almost an invitation for the public to submit specific and solution-oriented advice in their comments. And it seems to me that if they really want that, if they're true to the core, they would grant the additional time, the full 90 days of comment period, as well as perhaps field some of those questions or opportunities that the public's asking them of for clarity in the document itself. So, I just want to if we can, I'm just suggesting, I don't know if you feel it's a good idea to add a sentence that our public has also expressed interest and concerns about the time period and, and ODOT's ability to give their timely answers or clarity to the EA itself. Something along those lines. I don't know if that would be a friendly amendment to the letter. Just to add that it's not just us asking for the extension, it is our public as well.
I think that's a good addition.
Okay. So if that's the case, then I would suggest
Just a minute. We have other commissioners in the queue. Commissioner West.
Yeah, I support extending all possibility for public comment, of course. Absolutely. I guess I'm not clear on the answer from Chair Smith's question. This 2,000-page beast of a document that takes a special PhD to navigate through, so that the everyday man and woman can probably could never. I could never. It's insane. Do you guys have the capacity, which you're already at the brim, if we don't get this, to get us what we need out of that document to be prepared to fight this further? Do you have that capacity? This is a lot to ask. I know you're working with the cities. I believe you guys are working. And I am so thankful that our staff is doing this, and I trust you. But in reality, with that time frame, if we don't get this, how does it hinder us? How does it inhibit us from being effective?
I'll start and you can add on. You plan for the worst and you hope for the best. And so right now, we are planning for the worst with the schedule that you see before you today. We built additional capacity. We have PhD people that read this stuff all the time. Do they read 2,000 pages every other week? No, they don't. But we have internal capacity, and we've expanded that capacity in addition with consultant assistance there as well. And so again, the schedule, do we love the schedule that's in front of you? No.
Okay.
Would we love it to be a little bit longer? Yes, because we can always do a little bit deeper dive. And so we are doing the best that we can do with the current levels that we have. And will we be able to come to you and identify to you concerns, comments, questions regarding this document? Most definitely. And we will be able to articulate them to you in a way that not only have a technical aspect to it, but also in regards to the legality of some of the concerns that you've raised.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Commissioner Savas, you had a motion you want to make?
Sure. Chair, I move we approve the letter with the amendments suggested today.
Okay.
Second.
Commissioner Savas has made the motion that we approve this letter with amendments, seconded by Commissioner Schrader. Are we clear on the amendments, do you think? You guys are nodding your head yes. Okay, any further comments? Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Schull.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Now, the second question, I believe you asked, who wants to give testimony?
And we can come back to the board regarding that if you'd like us to do, but if you want to inform us of who might want to provide testimony, it just prepares us and allows us to start working
Mr.
on.
Savas, are you up for the job?
I like to, yes.
All right, he is. All right, that's done.
Bam, done.
That's done. Now, was there a third request that I didn't hear?
No, that was it.
Okay, goody. Yeehaw, we're done.
Okay, Chair.
Thank you so
I
much.
Can you give me one? I have a noon meeting. It takes me about half an hour to get there.
Okay.
I promise I will check in with Nancy Bush on the update with the courthouse. And I have read all the documentation on the CPOs, and I am fine with the bylaw changes, just to do that to you, to let you all know that. And I am sorry about this. I was hopeful we'd get done by 11:30.
Yeah, well, we have a
Well,
lot
Spencer
of,
Journal.
that's
Yeah.
okay, go ahead, do your meeting, and thank you very much, and I know you'll be up to date. Gary, what's next?
Next, Community Planning Organization bylaw approval. Sue Hildick, Public and Government Affairs, will present. And Holly. Sue, please introduce Holly.
Please introduce yourselves.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, nice to see you. I am thrilled to introduce Holly Krejci, who is our Senior Community Engagement Specialist, started with us in December and has been out on your behalf, getting to know the hamlets, the ABCs, the CPOs, and all the other community volunteers that we have in the county. We're bringing forward some bylaw changes today that have been through County Council but need to be blessed by you, and I'm going to let Holly share that with you.
Yes, thank you. Our community planning organizations, or as we fondly know them as CPOs, are part of the county's community engagement program. CPOs advise the county on issues affecting their communities, particularly in the area of land use. In order to meet statutory requirements, CPOs must establish and maintain bylaws, and the bylaws process includes review and approval from County Council, as Sue said, final approval from you, the board, and then a vote of the CPO. And as Sue mentioned, we're seeking your approval of 3 sets of bylaws today, included in the packet Hoodland, which is a new CPO. On the mountain, Damascus, they've made some minor updates to their existing bylaws, and Lad Hill Neighborhood Association also have made minor changes.
The last one?
Lad Hill.
Lad Hill.
Yes. County Council has reviewed and approved each of these, and upon your approval, the bylaws become official.
I thought I saw Lad Hill in there, but I didn't hear what you said. In these bylaws, is there a reference to conducting meetings according with public meetings law?
Yes, there is.
And that requires posting?
That is correct.
And that's required, do they have to record it?
They do not have to record.
Record, there's no electronic recording of their
That's
meetings?
correct. They do not have to record that.
That would be really onerous on these CPOs. I'm glad that that's not in there. It would be, but they do have to take minutes.
Yes, they do.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, good morning, Holly, and welcome to Clackamas County.
Thank you.
At a recent CPO meeting I attended, where I was getting pummeled with questions by the folks at Boring, it's quite enjoyable, actually. One of the questions that came up was, Commissioner Scholl, the CPOs receive an annual stipend of, I think it was $150, and that doesn't cover their PO box. Can you do something to maybe raise it to $250 a year stipend for CPOs? Don't need a question, just wanted to put the bug in your ear. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this? Gary, do we need a motion?
Yes, please.
I'll entertain a motion.
Let's see here.
Move to approve the bylaws.
I'll second.
Okay, just a moment. Commissioner Savas has moved for approval of the CPO bylaws as presented, and Commissioner West second that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Thank you both for coming forward.
Thank you.
Next is your quarterly replacement courthouse update. Nancy Bush, County Operations Officer, will present, and several guests. And Nancy, if you'd introduce our guests, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. As Gary said, this is the quarterly report for the courthouse. So we had our first one on December 6th. Of course, the next one will be in the June timeframe. So we do have Carl Schaefer here today, as well as John Kinderchuk, and we also have in the audience Judge Steele. She has a new picture of the back of the courthouse because we're losing more ground back there. If any of you are interested in seeing that particular picture.
I'd like to welcome Judge Kathy Steele today, and thank you for that picture. Expecting anything less of you. Right, okay, thank you. Go ahead, Nancy.
Yes, so I'm going to bring up Carl and John and the just to get things rolling, and they'll come up and do the presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning and welcome back.
Commissioners.
Thank you. It seems like we just had an update, and here we are quarterly already, but thank you for coming today.
Time flies when you're busy
Yes.
out there. Carl Schaefer, Clackamas Progress Partners, John Kinderchuk, Design Build Project Director with you today. It's our pleasure to be here for our quarterly update. It does feel like we were just with you between our last meeting here and groundbreaking, which was exciting. Thank you for your participation and support for that event. Very exciting for us. We're construction nerds. What's going on out there right now is what we live for, right? Managing the process of taking something from concept to reality. It just kind of gets us really excited. So I'm not going to talk a whole lot. John has really what you want to hear today, but I just wanted to thank you very much for your continued support on the project.
Go ahead, John.
Chair Smith, Commissioners. I'm going to start today with an update on where we're at with both design and construction. So as we've presented in our previous meetings, we're facilitating a fast-track design and construction project. So you've got both design, permitting, and construction going on simultaneously out there. Our design duration is from when we started, the last time we spoke, all the way until September 2023. Permitting is going to take us to the end of the summer, and we're deep into construction now, going through the motions of the enabling works, the early works, and mass grading, which you're seeing right now with the big hole in the ground. And then I'm going to take you through what's next. So we are embarking on a 36-month-long construction duration. We're 6.5 months into that construction duration. We've accomplished the 100% schematic design development. Right around the corner, we have 100% design development documentation, to be followed by the 50% construction documents, and final construction documents will be realized come September of 2023. The plan is to have the building weatherproof with a roof come 2024 in the summer. We're looking at occupancy readiness date of May 1st and final completion in August of 2025. To date, we have accomplished all of the courtroom mock-up scenarios. So we've gone through the approval process and review process, and that's behind us now. We're about 85% of the way through the enabling and early works projects, which really includes demolition and grubbing the site, removing any existing materials. We're about 30% through the utilities and establishing new utilities, removing old utilities. We are, as you can see, kicking off mass excavation. So we're removing site materials, crossing the street onto Beaver Creek and creating our stockpile, all of which will be returned to site. And then what we'll get into next is the rest of the project. So one of the things that I want to highlight is the 100% design development set of documents has realized our choice for brick, wood accents, fiber cement, material panels for composite materials, any perforated screens, and CMU block, which are all the architectural accoutrements that are going to make up the architectural facade of the building. In terms of construction phasing, I'll give you a little bit of a debrief on the phasing of the projects, which is fivefold. So we start with enabling works, which I described earlier. we start to look at things called early works, which is the mass grading and actually prepping the site for structure. That will be followed by structure, which is the stage that we're in right now, followed by the building envelope itself and the build-out of the building and site improvements, and then close out, turnover, and commissioning of the building come 2025. So a recap from the last time we spoke includes all of our enabling works, including all the demolition on site that we completed, the early works and all of the utility activities that you've been seeing over the past 3 months. And now we are working on the hole in the ground, which is the mass grading for the foundations and laying that down, foundation down for structure to move in. Including in that excavation is the sally port, or the entrance to the facility on the basement level. And now I'm going to talk through what is next. So structure is what you're going to see in the coming months. We're going to start with foundation on the south end of the project. So the southeast end, you're going to see the likes of concrete foundations. The crane will get erected come the first of the month of April. And the foundations and the walls and columns to make up the basement is what we're going to facilitate, which includes all the utilities, power, data, sewer, and all the rest of it to actually connect to the building. And the next time that we'll be doing a download for you, we will actually be on grade and pouring our last slab to take us up to grade level. And thank you. That is our update.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. The last month or two, we've noticed a lot of activity out there. And it's just running like a well-oiled machine. About once a week, I go to the other end of the building, either at the finance department and look out. And you could, one day I counted 15 different pieces of machinery all operating at the same time, and they didn't run into each other. And that's quite a coordinated effort, right? It's just very amazing to me. It seems to be a well-oiled machine. Further comments, Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for coming and talk to us today. Your job is more fun than mine. I really enjoy construction. A couple questions. Are you receiving timely support in the permitting process on the project? And the second question is, at your current excavation level, did you find the proper bearing material that you're looking for down there?
Yeah, so question one is, yes, we're working very closely with the county and the city to expedite permitting.
Good.
We're behaving as one team. We understand that there's some hurdles to get through with the city, but it's not impeding our progress.
Okay.
Question number two is, we've dug down to where we need to be.
Okay.
The actual foundation level is above the water table.
Yeah.
And so we're not dealing with any surprises. We haven't found any spaceships or dinosaurs or anything else, so we're in good shape. And the excavation of the project is going really quite well.
Yeah.
And we're on schedule.
Yeah, okay, well, thank you very much.
Further questions or comments? Anybody else in the room would like to speak on this? Any invited guests? We're good to go. Well, thank you very much. This is very exciting, and thank you for your
For
work.
us too, thank you.
Chair, may I make one more comment?
Of course, go ahead.
I'd just like to remind Judge Steele that there was never any crocodiles in the river behind the old courthouse. You can relax, Judge.
Thank you very much, gentlemen,
you.
for coming forward. Gary, what's next?
Next, your business meeting agenda for this Thursday, March 16th, 2023, 10 o'clock a.m. You have a Housing Authority public hearing required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development on the annual plan and moving to work supplement, and you have all the consent agenda items you discussed today. If you have any questions on any of these items, please let me know. Happy to answer them by Thursday. Next, Chair Smith, you wanted to discuss parking signage.
Yes, it has been brought to our attention by Commissioner Savas that quite possibly, in lieu of the fact that we don't have a parking plan for our unincorporated areas of Clackamas County where we have county-owned streets, that we might want to phase in some parking sign requirements. I'm going to turn this over to Commissioner Savas. That will give us the ability to state no parking and vehicles will be towed. And I did ask county council if that's legal, and it is legal. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn over the rest of the discussion to Commissioner Savas and any other commissioner who would like to opine on this topic. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and I appreciate the colleagues of mine who have reached out since I made that motion last week. And granted, not a big deal. We're here today, we're talking about it again, so there's interest in renewing that conversation. I have heard from others over, as I mentioned last week, prior to this and then following. And just want to just share some ideas about some situations in which parking has created some dangerous situations. I'm going to go with the last one on my list here first. I think it's an interesting one, which is a no-brainer. I would say that sometimes when people actually store their RVs on public roads and they put it right adjacent to a corner, it blocks the line of sight. Is it perfectly legal? Sure it is. Is it extremely dangerous? Absolutely. I get complaints about that so frequently. How can you allow that to happen? I don't care where in the county it's at. Line of sight's important, and I think that if you look at some cities, they factor in, parking where it's allowed and disallowed, and to specifically keep those corners open so passage on roads are safe, to eliminate those blind spots. So it's a safety issue. The other one is where there's frequency of buses, and so that where there's a lot of bus activity, parking creates another impediment because sometimes the bus is not inclined to pull into the bus stop, it's inclined to stay on the street and stop right in the middle of a lane. That creates havoc and dangerous situations as well. I think that there ought to be park and ride requirements, frankly, so that the burden of parking is not placed upon the local roads. For example, if you're going to put up a park and ride TriMet, it seems logical that you would allow parking nearby and make some accommodation, at least some kind of parking spaces per area. That is greater than signage, is more of a parking management plan for the county, which I think our staff could maybe make some recommendations there and look at some other models. The other one here, this is one that's been an issue for me going back way before being a commissioner, and that I hear businesses complaining about not having access to their business because people are parking either on their property, which that's not a county problem, but parking in front of their business when the only access to their business is public parking, and that's being consumed by people who don't have a place to park at their home or their apartment building because there was no parking available for them in the first place. So I think on behalf of businesses, I will just share with you that I've heard this is a common complaint as well. There needs to be some policies, again, to commercial areas so that there is that accommodation. Downtowns are typically that. Also, I mentioned last week, when commercial fleets have nowhere to park, sometimes they park their 18-wheelers even on residential streets. Residential streets that are beat up already, that are already failing, and 18-wheelers aren't typically allowed on there. Even the medium-sized duty trucks are not allowed. But they're there, and I'm not saying they're not allowed, but they're allowed, but they're just adding to the commercial use of our neighborhood streets for commercial parking. So I think those are all considerations that I've been hearing for years, and especially now in this role of, being a transportation related, and also hearing that. The other one, of course, is, camping on our local roads. I think that's another issue, and I'm kind of concerned that with Portland putting a lot of restrictions and so forth, it might encourage people to migrate to Clackamas County to park. And so that's another concern I think we need to get in front of as Portland changes their policies. I think we could be impacted by that. So, Chair, my motion last week, I don't know if you want a motion or not, but my motion.
I think we need to discuss this first.
Yeah, that's fine.
I understand you have 6 considerations here. I don't understand the park and ride requirements. We don't have park and ride per se in Clackamas County, do we?
Yeah, but what it created in one particular area was a lot of neighborhood complaints because of the lack of park and rides or lack of adequate parking. TriMet stops, people are parking in front of their homes and walking to the bus and leaving their car there for the day.
So that is different from what I perceive as our signage going forward. To me, the park and ride requirement is a whole policy session in itself. I'm just thinking out loud here. Now, Gary, we have blocking line of sight. Also, the frequency of buses, they're parking where buses need to be parked. Businesses have access to their own businesses or apartments. 18-wheelers, people are parking their commercial fleet in residential areas on the street, and camping on local roads. I don't know how a sign ordinance it will help in addressing all but one of these, I think. So I know we all have thoughts on this. Gary, based on what you heard today, going forward, what would be your suggestions to implement this?
Schedule a policy session, and staff will ask you what you'd like to put lower on your priority list for planning to move this up, and then hear exactly what you'd like to do.
Do we need to look at our work plan?
Yes?
Okay, so we need to look at the work plan, because what I was hoping we would do on this, commissioners, to get there a little bit faster and easier, and I appreciate what Paul Savas has brought forward, is that we identify certain areas in the county, starting at the northern border with Portland. We identify, like Phase 1, the most highly impacted areas where all this activity is gridded, Paul, gridded, so our staff has time to catch up. Okay, this is the area here. That's Phase 1. Phase 2 is this area. And then Phase 3 is this area, and just drop down from county, because you are right, we're going to be seeing pressure from Portland coming in to do that. I don't know how else to do it. I know we have we still have our sign manufacturing capability in DTD. I know it's not free. At least we can make our own signs, but I understand there's a cost to that. So I don't think, Paul, we need a motion unless you want to make one.
No, as long
I'd be
as-
more than happy to try to get this scheduled as a policy session, Gary, and we'll take a look at dates.
Yep.
And give staff time to be able to put together a plan, give us some costs on this on going forward. Commissioner West?
Chair, I'm supportive of the plan in theory. You kind of already addressed a bunch of my questions, which should be addressed in a policy session. I guess my big question we need to do a parking management plan. I think it's essential. Maybe even some of the cities would follow suit with us and mirror something where we border with them. And so that's a bigger question, like, hey, Milwaukee, do you have some concern here too? Would you like to maybe adopt some of this policy, or other cities that are close to the Portland area? And working with them, even though we do have a large portion that's unincorporated, that's under our jurisdiction, but I think that this could be a more comprehensive approach. I don't know how we pay for it. I know that when I go to park somewhere downtown, they have you got to pay for parking, right? Because this isn't going to be free. Enforcing the code's not free. Towing a car that's derelict on the side of the road on RV isn't free. Managing all that could be quite expensive, especially in the predicament that we're in locally with the local issues and pressures put on local government. But if we're going to be local government to solve problems, it's on us, because the other places around us have failed, and so we do need a management plan. And then does it get so elaborate that we have to have parking fees on certain roads, where if you park there, you pay your $1 an hour or whatever? I don't know, but that's a policy session question. So a lot of those, I appreciate you being willing to schedule this for
sure.
a longer discussion.
And maybe too, Gary, staff can identify maybe some grant funds or applications through whomever to do this. Do you have any other comments, Gary?
No, we'll schedule a policy session. You can discuss it.
Mr. Savas, do you have anything else?
Nope, the only thing I'm going to say is that I'm not anywhere near close to instituting parking fees and more administrative costs that way, so I think the signage is important. It gives a tool that in case there's a dangerous situation, law enforcement can at least...
We can act.
Yeah, can act, and I'd certainly like to learn more about what they can do today and what they cannot do today, whether it's like law enforcement. But this is becoming a larger issue, and people are complaining, and I'm hearing a lot around the town center also, where a lot of high-density housing is and lack of parking. So I'm just concerned, and the other thing is, I don't think that, cooking meth in public parking inside a motorhome is something that we want to
Correct.
just let it happen.
Or dealing of fentanyl.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. Agreed. So we'll get this teed up as soon as staff is, we'll just have a placement date, a couple placement dates. We'll go through the list of the dates. Anything else on this topic? Thank you, commissioners, for being open-minded on this. Gary, what's next?
Final item is Commissioner Communications.
Who wants to talk first?
Yes, good morning. I just have a quick comment. Yesterday, of course, we had the grand opening of the Fuller Station project. I really enjoyed it. I want to thank the personnel from the Housing Authority of Clackamas County for all their work on that. Thank you.
Great. Commissioner West.
I'm gonna do something unusual and be brief. I have nothing to add this week.
Oh, my gosh.
I know you guys would appreciate that.
This date in history. Yes, thank you. Mr. Savas.
Yeah, I'll be brief as well. Just want to alert my colleagues that as yesterday I went and in my busy day I went to Salem and spoke to State Representative McLean, who is the co-chair of the Joint Transportation Committee in Salem, about tolling and some of our concerns. And I had a discussion with her, and it was a good discussion, and shared some of our concerns. And it became apparent to me that, and she's aware of it as well, I think we stated this before, at least in some settings, that a lot of the transportation-related bills come in the latter part of the legislative session, so I have not been to Salem very much. But I found a value yesterday in the hallways after my meeting, how valuable it was to be there. And if I continued down the hallways, I probably never would have left, essentially. That's how, so I was kind of encouraged, actually, and likely to be visiting folks more often in the latter part of this legislative session on this particular issue of tolling.
Are you done? I would concur with that. I've been down in the legislature a couple times just talking about issues that are important to Clackamas County, and I would agree, being in the building has value. You walk down the hall and somebody else will grab you, hey, do you need this in your county? And I'll say, yes, of course. And there is a lot of intrinsic value in that. Staying on our talking points, just moving, the ball ahead on what we've agreed on is very important, and just lending a voice for local government. The most important issue we can state is unfunded mandates. And if you can't think of anything, remember when District Attorney John Wentworth came forward. And so we did this wonderful thing in Clackamas County. We added body cams for our deputies. Everybody says it's wonderful. Then a mandate comes after that for $750,000 from the Justice Department that wants us to do the software better so we can get cases out quicker. Well, there's no funding for that. It's coming out of our pockets. So I think if you explain that example to legislators, that's a really good one, and there's others out there too. All commissioners attended the Fuller Station opening yesterday. Thank you very much. I had an opportunity to speak on behalf of Clackamas County. It was a wonderful event. There was probably 20 different partners on that, and it has taken 10 years to get this built. So commissioners, with that in mind, I want to be very mindful for the future, how we spend this dollars and how long it took for this project to get online. So as we're trying to deal with the homeless and affordable housing issues, I think we need to be looking at these problems a little bit differently. And just because there are tax credits and to the builders, in a way, it's costing us more to give builders a tax credit, just saying. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, we had a meeting of the Arts Committee, for the courthouse art, just going through the logistics. It's very open, thinking about ways to acquire art, fundraising for art. It will not be paid with public tax dollars, just letting you know. So if any artists out there that you know of, and we're still adding to the committee makeup of this, and we've brought in some of our art representative for this. But we got interrupted yesterday during our little fire drill. So I didn't hear a lot of it, and I think they continued. We were able to come back. But this group is moving along quite nicely. That's all I have to say today. Seeing no further business before this commission, we are adjourned.